The Garden Gurus Live is brought to you by Garden Express and Troforte. Garden Express are Australia's leading mail ordering service, offering a wide range of quality gardening products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show, you jump online and visit their website.
Troforte is the leading supplier of controlled release fertilisers and micronutrients, and it's committed to delivering environmentally friendly solutions for your garden. Each week we'll be giving away a Troforte prize pack valued at $250. Simply follow, like and comment the weekly code word on Troforte's Facebook page. Well, good morning to you. Hello, welcome to the Garden Gurus Live. I am Trevor Cochrane. Now, I'm not going to tell you where I'm from, but I will give you a little glimpse of maybe that iconic building or maybe this particular landscape around me. And it might give you an idea. In fact, it might even just give you a little sample of my plant of the week, which is not going to grow everywhere in Australia, but it's certainly an incredibly beautiful plant. Can you guess where I am? Well, look, before you do that, let me say good morning to everybody. There's been a lot of people from all over Australia tuning in. Christine, you tuned in from Shoalhaven in New South Wales. Where else? Lynn, you're in Perth, and I believe it's a beautiful day in Perth. And of course, shouldn't forget of all the people, our very first one in this morning, Tyson Sanders, you're in Boronia in Victoria. Good morning to you all. I hope you're exceptionally well. We have a lot of questions. Yes, you are right, Leah and Cheryl. I am in Singapore. We are about to launch the Garden Gurus up here with our own team of local gardening experts, and that show premieres next Wednesday. So if you happen to be in Singapore next Wednesday, Channel 5, keep your eye out for it. It's a pretty exciting thing, and it's a really different way of thinking and gardening. And of course, it's a little bit on the warm side up here. In fact, it's the dry season, so it's been quite warm. And interestingly enough, we've had rain this morning, so it's more humid than it normally would be, which is a little challenging. And I am outside, so at some point, if you suddenly get picked up and run inside, it's because it's a little darker under the awnings of the building next to me. And as such, we thought, well, we'll just walk out and broadcast live from this incredible environment. Now, today's show, of course, it's all about answering your gardening questions, and that's why I'm here. And I want you to keep sending them through. But it's always nice to sort of show you a little bit of variety as well whilst we're doing it. And look, in the last few weeks, we've had people from Singapore joining us, and of course, the US, New Zealand, in fact, people tuning in from all over the world. So, it's great to have this wonderful international gardening community. Now, today we have an amazing $50 Garden Express gift hamper for the best question of the day. So think hard, give us your best one. That means you can go shopping online 24/7. Remember, it's gardenexpress.com.au. And we'll talk to Rowan coming up pretty soon. He has got an amazing plant. This is one I am so excited about. I'm actually that excited about that I've just placed my order. I got the jump in on all of you. When we talk about it, you'll understand why. I'm going to put it into my beautiful Kalamunda garden. I just love it. And I should also mention later on in today's show, we'll give you the code word. That one, of course, for, and most importantly, the code word for the Troforte $250 gift pack. And I'm just looking through all the messages. They're coming through left, right, and centre. We'll give you the code word towards the end. There's so much going on here. And let me have a look. Oh, yes. Okay. We'll go back to the beginning. Most important thing is answering your questions. So I'm going to start off with Tyson. Tyson was the first one in with a good morning this morning. Tyson, hello. You can see, look, it's drops of rain. It's getting a little bit wet. I might run inside at some point. Tyson, your question this morning is, can I plant an apricot tree in the ground or a wine barrel, or is there somewhere else that you'd recommend? Now, there are some dwarf apricots available now. They're really cool little trees. They only get to about 1.5, 2 metres, And in many ways, because apricots they're the very first fruit of the season generally, and they are a little bit on the challenging side. If you can grow one of those dwarfs in a wine barrel, Tyson, that's actually how I would recommend you do it. They are fantastic. A couple of tricks: really good quality soil. So get your hands on one of those really good quality potting mixes. I always use the blue Osmocote bag. That's the professional blend. It's one that growers would rely on to get the very best results, and that's exactly what it will deliver. Hi to the gang out at the Kalamunda Garden Festival too. Hello, it's great to have you joining us. I'm just looking through all the questions. All right. We've got the apricot tree. Yeah, right back to the beginning, I think, because there's quite a few really good questions come in this morning, and we'll have them flowing through regularly as we go along. So, Christine RL, you're from Nowra in the south coast of New South Wales. Are there any ideas in protecting lawn from active dog paths? Place barriers around hard-wearing areas to try and... Look, you know what the simplest trick is? I've got 2 dogs, Buddy and Charlie. They love rolling around, ripping up the lawn, and they're big dogs, so they can be quite damaging. Wherever they start to cause a bit of a patch or wherever there's a wear line, we just have some mesh, just some simple mesh, pop it down. They won't scratch through the steel mesh. The grass can grow through it. As soon as it's got to a certain point and it's nice and strong, take the mesh away, move it to the next spot, because I'll guarantee you they'll move to another place as well. It's just the nature of dogs. Now, let me have a look through here at these questions. How to prune a 40-year-old bottle brush tree. Vicky McKenzie, you didn't tell us where you're from. Please remember, let us know where you're from. Let's have a look here. You've got a 40-year-old bottle. You're scared that you're going to kill it. And you know what? An old bottle brush tree, there's a decent chance that you might if you cut it back too hard. Try not to cut back into all that old woody part of the tree. It'll make a big difference. So my recommendation is you do that. Now, look, I think before we go too much further, because your questions are flowing in quite quickly, I'm really excited because there is this amazing plant. It's called the tropical rock rhododendron. You might also know it as Varroa. Now, it's not the rhododendrons that you'd be familiar with from England and Europe. These are different, and they're really, really special. So I bought this up, I think, some time ago with my mate Rowan at Garden Express, and he said, let's look into it and see what we can do. So let's get Rowan on the line and see. There he is. G'day, mate. How are you?
Hey, Trev, how you going?
Yeah, really good, thanks, mate. I was just talking about the Varroas, the tropical rock rhododendrons. These are a really special plant, aren't they?
They really are, and stunning. There's some fragrant varieties. There's some that aren't so fragrant, but they're all equally as beautiful. The flowers on these rhododendrons are amazing. And the probably the best thing about it is they can be grown in cooler climates. So yeah, good.
So this is the thing is a lot of people would view rhododendrons as being a cool climate plant. This is one that can grow in the tropics of Cairns all the way down into Tassie without any problems at all. If there was any issue with this kind of plant, it's probably that they don't like drying out. So it's really important that you do a lot of soil preparation if you're going to grow them. But they are something special, Rowan, aren't they?
They really are, and I remember the conversation we had about trying to get these on available to customers, and we've been able to get around 16 different varieties or different colours, which are just superb. There's pinks, there's oranges. You'll see some of the vision up there on the screen at the moment.
Yeah,
they're looking absolutely stunning. Obviously, not in flower this time of the year. I'll show the guys some plants once we finish seeing the vision there, but they really are stunning. So 16 different colours available at the moment, which is just amazing.
that is amazing.
Quality of plant that we're talking about. New growth, 40 mil pot. You'd normally pay on our website $26.90 for these, but for Garden Gurus viewers, we've dropped them by 20% down to $19.90, and that's the type of plant you're going to get. And
what did I do as soon as you told me the price, Rowan?
You said, give me one of each.
I couldn't help myself. Sorry. They really are special plants. So this is a great opportunity, I think, for people to add something that I would consider rare and collectible. They really are one of those plants that you just don't find commonly. In fact, They're as rare as hen's teeth to get your hands on. The fact that you've been able to do it, and these are really robust, healthy plants too.
They are really good, and like I said, we were expecting to get a few, but the colour range that we've got, people should head over to the website. I don't know if Shaylee can pop up the link. Otherwise, I'll do that. I'll do that for when we finish up. But there is so much variety. There's pinks, there's oranges, there's reds, there's whites with pink outlines on the petals. It's just amazing collection, which I'm super excited about offering to the viewers.
It's a really, as I said, a really special plant. It's rare as hen's teeth to get your hands on. The fact you've been able to do it is amazing. And that price again, give us that price.
So normally $26.90 in a 140ml pot, like I showed you, down to $19.90. So that's a 20% saving. And you can, like I said, the quality of the plant's just amazing.
Now, it's only while stocks last, mate, and I've already taken the first 13, right?
That's right. There's a couple left, but you will have to get in quick, guys. These ones will not last long. We did trial them late last year, I think, and they sold out within the weekend. So I wouldn't leave it to the last minute. If you want to get your hands on these, definitely jump onto gardenexpress.com.au and secure your favourite colours.
Well done, mate. I do throw some challenges at you with rare and unusual plants, and this one was one that I really thought to myself, I don't know that he'll be able to pull this off. It's a bit of a hard one, but you've done it. They're amazing quality plants, which is the other thing that's really important. And of course, now's the time to place your order, get them delivered direct to your door. And of course, you can shop 24/7, right?
You can, and we'll get them directly to your door, so you don't have to worry about going out and getting them. One thing I will mention just before we finish up is we are unable to, unfortunately, send these into Northern Territory and Tasmania due to quarantine.
Right.
WA is okay, which is great. Sorry to anyone that's in Tassie or Northern Territory, we won't be able to send these plants to you at the moment.
Well, look, you know what? For those who can, that's a little bit more stock you'll have a chance to get your hands on. They are fantastic plants. A couple of little tips for people if you're not sure about this. If you live in a coastal environment, or if you live in a situation where you've got very alkaline soils, a lot of the sandplain soils, for example, in Perth are alkaline. This is not a plant to be putting into the soil. It is absolutely a plant to be growing in a tub though. So nice big pot. They are magnificent. And look at those trumpet flowers in colours that I've never seen before, Rowan. I've usually seen the yellows, more the burnt oranges and reds. They're the ones that are most common.
Colours. And they clump very similar to like a frangipani or something like that. The flowers clump in the thing. Mentioning pots, obviously you're 100% correct. Perfect for pots, but if you are potting them up, so as they get root bound, they don't like their roots to be
damaged.
So only pot them up when they do get pot bound, and don't pot them up into a pot that's huge compared to the one they've come on. We sort of recommend around 50 mil bigger each time, because they don't like the roots to be disturbed too much.
Yeah. Well, listen, mate, I'm going to let you go. I think it's going to rain on me at the moment, so I might let you go. But what a great deal, folks. Of course, gardenexpress.com.au. Rowan, thank you so much. Great catching up with you this week, mate.
Thank you, mate. Have a good trip, and we'll catch up with you, mate.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. All right. Well, look, that's a great deal. And how good is that spectacular view there? That is something else. So whilst you're soaking that up, I might start soaking some of your questions up and see what I can do to help here. Now, we're just running through. There's a lot here this morning. Joe Thompson, I'm not sure where you're from, Joe. I can't see it, but your question is, we've got a west-facing feature window box at the front of the house. It gets shade most of the day. Oh, dear. Hang on. Most of the day. And then intense late afternoon sun. Also coastal winds. Could you recommend something beautiful other than succulents to plant as a feature plant? Interestingly enough, we were just talking about the tropical rock rhododendrons and their beautiful tubular flowers, and some similarities to some things like frangipanis. And there's some beautiful dwarf frangipanis that love that kind of environment. It's actually really good. So there's a dwarf obtusa, which is the evergreen. What you can do is to create a nice little ambience and microclimate. But then underneath, plant out with some from the same family. And the ones that come to mind for me, the Diplodenias, or they're known as Mandevillias these days, but they used to be divided between Diplodenia and Mandevillia. Beautiful tubular flowers, pinks, whites, reds, they come in a whole range, and they're incredibly hardy. So quite water-wise, quite hardy, beautiful colours. What more can you ask for? Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, how to prune a 40-year-old? We did that one, Vicky. Tyson, your question with the apricot, I did that one. Linda McFarlane in Nowra. Just this morning, you sprayed the lawn with winter grass killer, David Gray's winter grass killer, but it has to be done now. Not really sure what I get what you're saying. Christine's giving some advice to Linda McFarlane. Okay, Linda must have asked about how to control winter grass. That David Gray's winter grass killer is the perfect way to go. All right, you can see I'm doing little things whilst we're talking, just because it's dripping on me at the moment. I'm going to try and avoid going inside if I can, just to keep you out in this amazing environment that I'm slowly cooking in. Okay, let's go to the private chat, and I've got a question from Glenn Miller. Glenn is on the Gold Coast. Glenn, you're a great supporter of ours. Thank you very much. You've got a 5 to 6 metre tall Tibushina. Tibushina is those beautiful, they've got these wonderful flowers, and they're kind of velvety, beautiful mauves, generally blues. They're fantastic, and they do exceptionally well in around sort of more the sort of New South Wales, a little bit more humidity. They do okay in Perth, and I've grown them previously in one of my past lives as a nurseryman. They do take a little bit of work in climates like mine, but in yours, they love it. And yours has got really big, 5 to 6 metres tall, and you're wondering, can you prune it? You haven't wanted to in the past because it's been in flower, and that's understandable, but it's not at the moment. Are there special requirements to prune it? You know what, the most important thing with them is to be pruning them on a more regular basis if you want to keep them more compact. Once you let them sort of stretch out, they can be quite problematic. But in saying that, you can prune them back. Don't prune them so there's no foliage left. So prune them so there's still a little bit of foliage left. You've cut down as far down as you can to leaf nodes. And that should just bush it out and get it producing. For every single stem that you cut back, you'll get 2 come from that. So it'll make it far more compact. Most importantly, Glenn, is that in about 6 months' time, you are going to see a really significant change when it comes to the shape, the look, the appearance, and the number of flowers that it produces. And that's the important thing. It will produce a lot more flower. All right, Christine, I answered your thing about the lawn and putting mesh over there to keep the dogs from getting there. That will really make a big difference. Jennifer Bissett, how do I stop neighbours running bamboo infesting your yard? That's a hard one, because running bamboos are notoriously vigorous, and they will come in and climb in under a fence and get into your yard. And you do need to block them out. You can use barriers between your fence. It's probably the only thing you can do. If they do pop up on your side, neat Roundup painted on them. It's the only way, because it's systemic. It'll go back down through the stem, kill it back as far as it possibly can. But yeah, you might want to talk to your neighbour about even putting a barrier on their side of the fence so it doesn't come into your part of the garden, save you a little bit of work there. Let's go. I'm looking through your questions. Now, Linda McFarlane, you've got a good one. This is one that sort of a lot of people are experiencing at the moment. So it's probably something that I should bring up. Linda McFarlane's saying she's got a lot of thatch in her spongy lawn. She's looking at changing to Treforte fertiliser. I'm wondering if this is good enough to build the good bugs to eat the thatch. Do you know what? This is the future, Linda. In a domestic lawn, if you can use something like Fertolawn, which is the Treforte microbe encrusted slow release fertiliser, it's not a control but a slow, what will happen is the microbes will consume the organics that are actually in the soil. And this is actually a really interesting thing, because of course the more it consumes those dead organics, the more you end up with a great result when it comes to the lack of sponginess. What you will find though is the lawn starts to become thin and long, so you're probably going to have to, in probably October, November, cut it back pretty hard. Hopefully that helps. All right, let's keep rolling along. There's lots of questions coming through. Nicole Collier, I'm not sure again where you're from, Nicole. Tell us where you're from. It helps a lot. 2 of my 5 Chanticleer ornamental pears have leaves that are crunchy on the outer edge. It looks like it's dying. The others will still look green and lovely. Well, they should be losing their leaves about now, Nicole. So I'm assuming that you're from a bit of a warmer climate, because they really should be colouring up. Chanticleer is a beautiful ornamental pear and does a great job, but you do need to have a bit of a think about probably the ones with the burns on the outside edges. I'm suspecting that it's literally dry roots. So I would suggest it's look, you should do it now, probably do it again in September, October, but I would suggest that you think about applying a wetting agent, and that's really important. So that makes a big difference. I am slowly getting wet here. I'm thinking I'm going to have to head up in a second and get into some protected area. So hopefully that helps, Nicole. Let's go to Scylla Cherterman. Now, how to protect passion fruit from possums on the Gold Coast? Very difficult, because possums are remarkably resilient. But if you dust your passion fruit with white pepper, they have a very sensitive nose, and it can be quite off-putting for them. So they'll definitely head in a different direction. So hopefully that helps. I did notice Leah Robinson saying she's got a Varroa rhododendron, pretty hot pink, and it's flowering in Brisbane. Well done, Leah. It's a great place to grow them. So super cool. And I hope a lot of you take this one up, because I was quite serious. I actually did order those plants for my garden. I just have not been able to get them. And, I've been in this game for a long period of time. So, it's a bit of a challenge. All right. Okay, I'm just going to stop wiping screens and keyboards in a second, and probably head, I think, up into a slightly drier spot. So it might be a little darker than I was before, but we'll keep answering your questions. Now, let's have a look here. I'm looking for questions at the moment. Sue Hall, do succulents really need special potting mix? It's a really interesting question. Or they do okay with a cheap mix and perlite mixed in? The answer is, Sue, that no, they won't do well with a cheap mix. There's a lot of things you can do to cheap mixes to try and improve them, but by the time you've done it, you might as well just go and buy yourself a good mix. Now, with succulents, I should say to you that with succulents, they do require a very free draining soil mix. That's really critical. So let's think about maybe just investing up front and then enjoying the spoils. Typically, most of those potting mixes for succulents, they're made of a cocoa peat, coarse river sand. Sometimes you could use something like perlite. Up here in the tropics, they use pumice, which is a stone. Down in Australia, we have zeolite. That also can be another addition to that sort of situation. All right, I think we're going to take a little break, and I'm going to head up into a drier spot and continue on with your questions. In the meantime, let's see whether Shaylee can throw up a bit of a clip for us. Maybe we can have a look at that Garden Express clip again.
Known as the tropical rhododendron, Varroas are stunning garden plants because they come in all sorts of sizes and colours. And even though they are nicknamed the tropical rhododendron, they do tolerate cooler climates because they originate from the mountainous areas of Southeast Asia, so they definitely get the heat and the cold. But what they don't like is a heavy frost. Varroas are pretty versatile plants as they can be grown in large pots or planted in the garden. And to get the best out of them, make sure to have them growing in an area that has morning sun and afternoon shade. They They like a slightly acidic soil, and another thing to keep in mind is that they have quite shallow roots which are very fibrous. So having a nice layer of mulch will help protect those roots, but it can help keep the soil cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. And you can use any mulch, a tan bark like this or even a sugar cane. Vireo rhododendrons come in all sorts of vibrant, cheerful colours, and the trumpet-like blooms form in large clusters, giving grand displays throughout the year. If you're dreaming of a colourful, tropical-inspired display, Vireas are a great garden plant. Garden Express has a special offer where you can get your very own Virea in a 14cm pot for only $19.90. which is a saving of 25%. Head on over to their website to discover the full range of colours.
Okay, we're back. I'm a little drier. I might appear a little darker on your screen though, because I am under the awnings now, because it has been just slowly building up, the rain. It's starting to, it's quite interesting because it has been so hot and dry up here. It stopped raining about a month ago. This is really the first significant rain here in Singapore. So yeah, all right, let's keep rolling along. We'll come back to Australia. I'm going to go to Claire Jenkins, and then I'll go to, oh no, I've got Claire, yep. So I'll go to Claire Jenkins. Managed to kill 2 of the blue kangaroo paws last year. I still have the neon green one, but it's struggling. I was recently given a yellow one in memory of a lost pet. Don't want it to suffer the same fate. Give me some tips. You can grow them in the ground. That's the first thing. The blue ones, I've seen them, they do exceptionally well in the ground. They do even better in pots though. And if you really want to guarantee results, grow them in a pot. And with that pot, make sure that you are planting them into a native plant potting mix. And most importantly, feeding them. A lot of people are scared to feed kangaroo paws, but they respond really well to it. When the flowers finish, cut them back down to the base of the stem, but cut them clean, and new ones will emerge. They are a wonderful plant, so hopefully that helps you. Let me have a bit of a look here. I think I skipped Mel Smedley. Will pruning well-established camellias whilst in full flower harm the tree? You're in northeast Victoria and you're in a frost area. Tree's great, but absolute abundance of flowers. Yeah, look, it's probably not the time to be pruning them, to be quite honest. It would be a lot better for you to get through the winter, get through the frost season, and then give them a prune. If you absolutely have to, it should still be okay, but there is a little bit of a risk that any of that new foliage that emerges, if you do have a significant frost, it could burn the new growth back. So my suggestion would be wait until September, October, as soon as the frosts start to disappear. Lisa Boardman, hi. How are you? Thanks very much for writing in. I have this plant growing in my garden and I don't know what it is. Do you? Let's have a look. I think we've got a photo attached with this one. Have we? No, we don't, by the looks of it. Lisa, I can't tell you what's growing in your garden if I don't see a photo. Could you do me a favour? Could you send one through to Shaylee, who's producing today? And she's got Way alongside her, who is learning the ropes as a bit of a backup to make sure that we always bring the show to you, no matter what, rain, hail or shine. Yeah, I can't answer that question if you don't send me some flowers, Lisa. So please do that and I will answer for you. Carol Bush, can I put all flower bulbs in now? Well, all spring flowering bulbs you should be putting in now. You're in Perth, perfect time of the year to be planting them out. So my answer is yes. Now's the time to be doing it, but not to all flower bulbs. So there are some that should be coming out of the ground. Things like dahlias, which are technically tubers, should be coming out and kept in a dry spot, particularly if you're in a very wet climate, and that'll make a big difference with regards to the growth. Okay, let's keep rolling along. What's the best bamboo variety for areas that get frosts and temperatures below zero? Believe it or not, most people think bamboos are all tropical plants, but they're not. A lot of them grow in places where it snows during the winter and they survive it quite well. So there's a lot of them. Off the top of my head, I would suggest that the Timor Black would be one that will do fine where it gets quite cold. Doesn't seem to affect it, surprisingly. and it's a lot of that's because it comes from a higher altitude and does get quite cool temperatures as well. So don't be scared to plant bamboos. They really do very, very well. So Melissa, hopefully that helps you. Dennis Chu, hi mate. I'm trying to maximise my productive garden. Are there any edible fruiting ground covers that you could recommend, especially anything south facing? Love to know where you live, Dennis. That would help me an awful lot if you told me the town and suburb ideally. There are a heap of ground covers. Now, it depends where you are, but growing things like, and this is kind of a cool idea, but growing things like peanuts as a ground cover over the ground is a good idea. During the summer months, growing things like sweet potatoes, they smother the ground. You eat the tips of the shoots. You obviously get the beautiful big tubers at the end of the season. There's two really good alternatives. If you're in a really dry climate, for something that's probably a little bit different, but maybe something from the Mediterranean, and that could be anything from a herb right through to, let me think now, I've got one in my brain, I just can't think of the exact name, the caper, and it's a beautiful plant, and you can kind of eat the flowers, which are actually really attractive, but of course it's the flower buds that you pickle. They're really good. Leonie Drew, hello Leonie. I put some photos of tiny black bugs invading your well-established roses. Every year, you stuck them up on our Facebook page. We don't know if we have the photo to stick up, but I did see that photo, and those tiny little black bugs are weevils, and they're eating their way into the flower bud. They drill a little hole on the outside and eat all the soft petals, all the tissue on the inside. You're in Adelaide, so look, my suggestion to you, Leonie, is you need to go for a systemic or a reasonably strong insecticide in this particular instance. You need to break the cycle is what you need to do. So probably 1 or 2 sprays. If it was going to be a hardcore, I would suggest something like, probably the most successful is going to be Success, which is actually softer, or Carbaryl, which is quite hard. But that will sort them out to some extent. You just need to, it's okay 1 or 2, but you don't want all of the buds being lost. So you've got to try and break the population down a little bit. The other thing to do is to try and bring in predators. I'm not sure what predatory insects might go for these sorts of guys, but bud weevils are quite a common problem at times, and once their populations build up, they can be quite problematic. So hopefully that helps. Okay, let's keep rolling along. Rebecca Birch, you're from Hilbert. My desert roses have dropped all their leaves. Is there something wrong with them? There is something wrong with them. They don't like the colder weather, Rebecca. And what they'll do is kind of go into this dormant sort of situation. What you don't want at this moment in time is for them to be very wet. You want to keep them on the dry side. So pulling them in under the eaves of the house or something like that to stop them just getting soaked in the rainfall, that will make a big difference to the final result. Hopefully that helps you. Okay, let's keep rolling along. We'll go back to Tyson. Can I plant a plum tree in the ground? Yes. Well, Tyson, you can. But again, I'm going to go back and say to you, mate, get a dwarf. Get some dwarf plums and pop them. You can get multi-grafted as well, because you do need 2 to make sure you're going to get a good fruit. But yeah, it sounds to me like your garden is going to be chock-a-block full of wine barrels, half wine barrels full of fruit trees, which sounds pretty pleasant to me, Tyson. Well done. Okay, we'll keep rolling along. Next one up. Oh, there's actually a lot of you are supporting each other, which I really love this. This idea that we are all a community and we're working together. So it's great where you jump in, somebody asks a question and you know what the answer is, you come through. Vinetta Ainsberg, hello Vinetta. How do you prune dragon fruit plants, when and how? So you're in Belladura, that's in WA, and I would suggest that, I don't know whether we just had a little technical problem. I'll answer that question for you again. Vinetta Ainsberg, you asked about pruning dragon fruit. You're in Belladura in WA. Sandy location, can get some frosts. It's just on the outskirts of the city. Don't prune them until they have fruited. In fact, I wouldn't prune them until you get to some warm weather in spring. then you just cut off what you want to cut off. They're prolific. Once they get going, they've got their roots down, they're really prolific. So don't be scared to prune them. Don't be scared to give them a really good pruning and encourage them to spread out as far and wide as possible. And don't forget that, of course, everything you prune off, you can plant into a pot in some soil, and they will drop roots, and you'll have new plants. You can share them around with your friends. Sue Hall, my passion fruit vine up here in Brisbane. The only thing I fed it, a banana juice, and coffee grounds. Banana juice is different. Best crop ever, lots more flowers. There's a couple of crinkled ones, which were a bit of a worry. Now, I reckon the banana juice might be really good because bananas are known to be very high in phosphorus and potassium, particularly potassium. Really encourages strong flowering and, of course, subsequently strong fruiting. Sounds really good. Crinkled ones is quite natural if the fruit's getting older. So as long as its pulp inside is fine, don't worry about them starting to crinkle on the outside edge. It just means the fruit's been on there probably a bit too long. So, yeah. Let's keep rolling along. Leah Verrill, hello. What should I do to my Grevillea superba at this time of the year? Well, you could prune it back. It's a beautiful Grevillea, very lovely, upright, quite large plant. Well, when I say quite large, probably 1.5 meters, I suppose. I'm thinking sort of more in that sort of ability to get quite big and bushy. Don't be scared to prune them. They will be producing flower buds, but they sort of tend to do it right through the winter and well into spring. So I wouldn't worry. Give them a bit of a prune. Trick here is don't prune too hard into older wood. Tend not to recover too well from that. So I would suggest you leave that alone. Okay, Glenn Miller. Bonnie showed us how to do the lasagna mix of bulbs. I've been wondering, how do you water the lower bulbs without drowning the upper bulbs? Well, this is the magic, Glenn, of watering. And that is that water is heavier, so it moves through the soil and it'll eventually get down to those bulbs at the bottom. It's actually the reverse issue. In actual fact, what tends to happen is it gets to the bottom of the pot and there can be a bit of a build-up of water. So you need to make sure that pot is free draining. As long as the water can flow through, all the bulbs will get the same amount of water, roughly. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, mate. Good question. Sue Lone, you're in Wyoming in New South Wales. I was wondering if I could, oh yes, I can help you. We have 2 big camphor laurel trees. I love the camphor laurel. It can be a pest at times, but it's a beautiful tree and obviously fragrant wood. But one has started to die of the 2 that you've got. Now the other one's also dying. What could be causing this? Now they are susceptible to a couple of borers, and it'd be worthwhile having a look to see if you can see any holes where sap's coming out. Because if that's the case, you might want to get an arborist in, and they might be able to do a tree injection of a systemic insecticide to move it up and down the cambium layer, the sap, and anything that drills into that will actually be killed off. So I suspect that's what it is. I have seen situations where camphor laurel trees can be dry stressed and start to die back, and I've also seen them where they can sometimes get root rot diseases. But if these trees are really important to you and they really are a beautiful tree, it's worth getting an arborist in. That's what these guys, they're professionals. That's what they do for a living, and they've always got a passion for trees, so it'd be worthwhile looking at that. Okay, now, here's a good one. Christine Quarry, you're in Melbourne. Can you please confirm if it is summer that you grow ginger in? Christine, you'll see on the Garden Gurus that we have been showing you how to grow some in pots, and those ones need to go into a warm spot through the winter. You could get your hands on one of those Sproutwell greenhouses, and they can be little ones, and the solar heat that's generated from those is enough to keep your ginger growing through the winter. And if you get a proper glass house, they thrive in that all year round, so you don't have to worry about it too much. But the truth of the matter is that it's summer, so plant in the spring, harvest in the autumn. Hopefully that helps. Let's have a look. I'm looking through our list. Jen Illies is in Canberra. Love the show. Thank you very much, Jen. Just watch the autumn citrus garden segment. Never knew you could grow so many in cooler climates. Can I suggest a list of what could grow in Canberra? Yeah, so to be quite honest, most of them. So certainly mandarins and oranges, and your neighbours do pretty well, but your Valencias will do really well in that environment. Thinking through probably mandarins, most of the mandarins will do pretty well in a cooler climate. Lemons, probably more Eureka of all the varieties to get really good results, although Lisbon can do pretty well. It's the best juicing lemon, I think. What else? Pretty much the yellow grapefruit do quite well. Some of those more tropical varieties probably not, but most citrus should do pretty well in Canberra. Trick is probably to get them into the ground the beginning of May, give them some time to get established, put a little bit of protection over them over the winter, and then the following year they'll establish properly and then really get moving and should be able to handle the climate thereafter quite well. A little bit of protection, excuse me, a little bit of protection early on will make a world of difference. Okay, let's have a look. Julie Murphy, not sure where you're from, Julie. We've got a dwarf mandarin tree in a huge pot. I've noticed a few of these big strands popping up. They look very strong and healthy too. Do I prune these off? Oh, I think you're getting what we call suckers. And if they're coming from the base, you don't prune them off. You pull them away from the stem. If it's above the graft, and you'll see where the graft is, if you look at the base of the stem, you'll see two different shades of wood basically. Anything above that union will be what we call a water shoot. And that can be a powerful new shoot. It's going to be a major branch. If you want to push all the energy up into the top of the plant, cut that off. That one you cut. But anything below the graft, you pull away with your hand. And that stops the suckers from regrowing from those cut points. Okay. You're throwing some good challenges at me. Let's go to Claire Jenkins. Thanks, Claire. Top 5 things to be doing in a suburban Perth garden this time of the year. Number 1, planting winter, spring flowering annuals and bulbs right now. This is the time to do it. Next 2 weeks, really important. If you love roses and you want to get great roses, now's the time to be buying your bare-rooted roses. And in a couple of weeks' time, probably thinking about some of the bare-rooted fruit trees too, those deciduous fruit trees. It is the time of the year also to be planting citrus. So there's quite a few things there. One thing you should be thinking about doing is mulching, because there's a lot of weed growth starting to emerge. And what you want to do is put a nice thick layer over the top. Now you can use a chunky compost. You could also use something like sheep manure this time of the year. I think that's probably 7. Anyway, there's a few there for you, Claire. Hopefully a few suggestions that will come in handy. All right, Rhonda Rodder, you're in Melbourne. Hello, Rhonda. I have some forced tulips in a pot, a gift from Mother's Day, but they're dying back. How should I best handle the bulbs or future flowers? Okay, so interestingly enough, tulips, the ones that we see flowering early, generally have been brought in from Holland, and they're flowering completely out of season to what they would normally do, or when they're in our environment, I should say. So now you've got to try and bring them back to that. Now you're in Melbourne and it can get quite cool. So it's probably cool enough for tulips to actually be able to be chilled down. And the time to do it is not now. So thing to do is let them die back down, take the bulbs out of the pot, put them in a little onion bag or something like that, just so that they're airy, hang them in a cool spot. And then in October, take them out, pop them into a chiller. So basically the crisper in the bottom of the fridge. You don't want it below probably 2 degrees, ideally sits around 4. Leave them there for a good month or 2. Pull them out around about December. They will probably want to start growing straight away. So you can probably sit them in a cool bag for maybe another month, but then after that you are going to have to actually plant them out. So they will still be flowering in autumn, because you're not going to break the cycle unless you leave them in that pot and let them rest over the winter months, let them sort of start to try and spring up and grow again in spring, and then they'll start to acclimatise and adjust. But you're talking about Northern Hemisphere bulbs that have been brought into the Southern Hemisphere, which is why you're seeing them, and that's why they use that term forced, but all we're doing is manipulating nature. Yeah. Very complex discussion, that one, sorry. Kevin McKenzie, you're in Thornley in Western Australia. Oh, this is one you emailed us about this one, Kevin. Watermelons. You're in Thornley. Soils are not great in Thornley, but you've not been getting great results. But previously you'd had very good results, and then you've moved to Thornley. You can't get them to perform. Now you've asked the question: do they need acidic soil? Yours is alkaline. You've added some sulfur to the soil, but you still didn't get the pH low enough. Should you buy some soil that's more suitable? Short answer is yes. Probably bring some good soil in. It will not hurt as long as it's neutral in its pH. The other way to buffer soil is to be adding, buffer the pH, is to be adding lots and lots of, I suppose, just composted organics. You can use certain things. For example, if your soil's acidic, mushroom compost is always a nice one. It tends to be a little more alkaline. But as a general comment, my suggestion would be that you look at probably putting a fair amount of organic matter in. You could, in little patches, dig holes in the ground, pop a couple of bags of potting mix in, plant your seeds into that. But all this with the one thing to keep in mind is that you only grow watermelons in summer. So don't even worry about planting anything or doing anything until November. If you want to do the soil work though, great time to do it. Okay, you'd love to show us your resident bandicoot. Okay, this is good. This is a good little thing. I've got bandicoots in the garden too. This is Jeff and Rita. They're in Queensland. Got a resident bandicoot and his little nest that he's made in your fern house, but you've not managed to attach photos. Okay, well look, get those to us next time. I'd love to see it. We've got bandicoots. We call them quenders over here in the West, and my kids, when they were little, my eldest Will used to call them bandicoots because they are pretty cute, and they're a wonderful part of the garden. They tend to sort of root around in my lawn, digging up little patches here and there, bringing out some of the curl grubs and lawn beetles and stuff like that, and eating them. They don't do too much damage, but they can be quite thorough this time of the year. So hopefully that helps you. Okay, we have got lots of questions. Where do we go next? I think we'll go to Christine in Nowra because I'm looking at all these questions, and we've certainly got our hands full to try and answer them all. We've got about 15 minutes, a little less to go, so I'm going to do my best. I promise you. Okay, Christine from Nowra. If a citrus cutting grown from a parent plant that is not grafted is taken, should this be okay? Oh, it's a Buddha's hand citron. The answer is they certainly can grow on their own roots, so there's no issue with that. The reality is that if you're in an environment that's quite challenging, they'll have very little vigor, so they tend not to be very vigorous compared to the grafted varieties we know. So the answer is grow it in a pot, and I think you'll get a good result. And it'll be a smaller plant, it won't be as big, but it'll still produce those beautiful Buddha's hand fruit, which you love. So hopefully that helps. Okay, Trevor, what sort of plant can you plant to attract bees? Well, it depends whether you want annuals. What you should do is look at your garden and look at the continuous flowering nature of plants and try and have flowers all through the year. That way bees will have a regular supply. You don't want them getting into winter and there's just nothing around. However, in saying that, if you want to boost it at certain times of the year when you're lacking, things like borage, the herb borage, it's become self-seeding as it is, but it is a really good source of nectar and pollen to bees. So maybe borage would be my number one choice, I would suggest. But any of the brightly coloured ones, we've still got sunflowers, things like marigolds, calendulas, they're all good, all good. Lynn, Winstanley, hello Lynn. My 9-year-old granddaughter has asked me to help her with planting sweet peas, but I know nothing about sweet peas. Yes, okay. Where do we start? Okay, soil. I know you're in Claremont, so cultivate that soil, turn it over really thoroughly where you're going to plant the seed. A little bit of blood and bone into that wouldn't hurt. Dig it through, water it down. Then with your granddaughter, plant those seeds, and I would pop 2 in each little hole, and I'd keep them around about 10 to 15 centimetres apart. Plant them along, obviously, a spot where you're going to be able to support them. That's really important. And stand back. The traditional time for planting sweet peas, by the way, is always sort of said that you should plant them on Anzac Day. That is the day where the timing is perfect from a seasonality point of view. But you'll still get great results if you put them in now. One word of warning, watch out for snails and slugs. They love those small seedlings as they're emerging from the ground. Good thing about growing sweet peas is if you grow them in places where you've had crops before, they actually put nitrogen back into the soil as well. So they effectively are a green crop. They will produce better results for you in the future. Shaylee is in Perth. Hello. I've recently planted the end of a chopped Chinese cabbage. Done this in the past, but the new leaves were decimated by hungry slugs. How can I avoid this without using chemicals, Shaylee? Good question. It's an interesting thing that you've done. I'd be interested to see how that actually works, because that's quite different. But look, the thing with the new foliage and snails and slugs, they love Chinese cabbage. It's delicious. I like it too, but they can be there for a long period of time before I ever get there. So using something like bluestone, using things like sawdust around the outside of the plants, that will always be a natural deterrent to things like snails and slugs. And there is a product that you can get from Yates. Now, it's not for this particular purpose, but it's called fungus gnat barrier. That's what it is. Fantastic product. If you're getting those black flies in your Chardonnay, then you use this on top of the soil for indoor potted plants. But it's also very effective in stopping snails and slugs coming into your garden. So small trail of that around the outside is not a bad way to go. Or if you've got fire ash, it's another thing which does tend to be a little bit of a barrier as well. Okay, Shaylee, I hope that answered your question. Sky Haslam is in Buxton, Victoria. We're all over the place today. Queensland, Victoria, Tassie, Singapore. It just goes on and on and on. Okay. Now, reading through you've got a beautiful edible garden for the kids, and you're teaching them from harvest to plate, which is absolutely fantastic. But each year they get disappointed with your apple and pear trees because the fruit flies get to the fruit. And it is a challenge. And look, the simplest way to guarantee you a crop is to get those fruit fly barrier bags. So you just put them around the outside of the fruit, and you won't get any dimple bugs, you won't get any fruit flies. It keeps the codling moth out, and it guarantees you a crop. And, I think a batch of 50 or something from Garden Express, it's not that expensive. So it's probably worthwhile. And of course, you leave them on and then you pick your fruit afterwards and you'll be fine. Pears tend to be a little less affected by fruit fly, but I would suggest this is the solution for you. Hopefully that helps. Okay, let's keep rolling along because we've got lots of questions still to go and just about no time. All right, hopefully the fruit fly barrier bag helps. Okay, let's go to Queensland. Robert Rogers-Falk, you are in Brisbane. You're having trouble growing veggies in your garden beds. Plus, we've got a new zoysia grass. Oh, this is interesting, and it's gone brown. Any clues on how to fix this? I would suggest that you've got problems with wettability in your soil, with the moisture content in the soil being inconsistent. And that's probably where a wetting agent will come in. Adding organics will make a big difference. Putting things like, particularly with vegetables, making sure that you're using controlled release fertilizers, and ideally even dig them into the soil. Trophorte, fantastic for veggies and also for fruit. But dig it into the soil, build the soil up, put some wetting agent over it, leave it for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3, then put your vegetable seedlings in and you'll get great results. The lawn sounds exactly like experiences that I've had before with zoysia grass. It gets a very deep, almost quite woody kind of root system and wiry, and it needs once every couple of years. It needs to be dethatched, so have some kind of probably dethatching is probably the most effective for this particular type of grass, and then maybe a little top layer of either sand or a small organic substance just to stimulate that regrowth and bring it back. If you do that now, you're probably not going to get great results. You do want to wait until we're getting some warmer weather. I think southeast Queensland, it's getting a bit dry, but yeah. Oh, and the other thing is dry. It does not like drying out. So if it dries out, you'll end up with lots of patches. So again, wetting agent, soak the ground with wetting agent. When you put a wetting agent on, I personally prefer liquids. Mix them in the watering can, pour it all over the ground, get the hose out after you've done the initial application, and just like soak the ground. You want to see it bubbling. If it's bubbling, that's the air pockets coming out of the ground, and it'll deliver great results. So hopefully that helps you. And let's keep moving. And yeah, plant of the week. Shall I go there? Yeah, I might go there just before we get moving. How's that? So that, see the beautiful flowers of this? This is something that pretty much anybody in Perth, Sydney, north of those latitudes will grow really well. They're heliconias, and I grow them even in the Perth Hills, which is a bit cooler. There are a number of different types. This one's called Fireflash, by the way, but there's a whole bunch of different forms, and some of them can be huge flowers. Some of them can be wonderful little plants that just produce masses of these small flowers. They are absolutely stunning. Interesting thing about heliconias is that they really are one of those sort of almost indestructible garden filler plants. They'll add lots and lots of lovely foliage, but not necessarily, be the absolute standout. You can have other feature plants in amongst them, or you can grow all the different varieties together in the same spot. One thing I would say though is if you're in the southern areas and you can't grow heliconias, Tassie, Victoria, Adelaide, it's probably warm enough, but cold winters is not good for them. The solution, if you want to have the same type of flower, it's different but it's similar, is to go for the bird of paradise, which will handle those conditions a lot better. So there's a couple of options for you to think about anyway. Okay, Mattia in Sydney, hello. Planted cabbage broccoli 3 weeks ago, not growing. Is it too cold? Probably. It will grow, they just grow slower, that's all. Hopefully you've also added some fertilizer. These plants are really hungry. They require fertilizer, but they don't want a high nitrogen fertilizer. So don't give them anything that's got a high N. You want high K and a little bit of P in there. So a little bit of phosphorus is also good for these plants, but not too much. So you're really looking for a very specialized vegetable fertilizer, and you're probably wanting to alternate between a liquid and the granular. And you can kind of go for that granular slow release with something like Treforte, but there is a Treforte liquid which you can hose over the top. And the plants will absorb that through their foliage. So you're getting the nutrients coming in from all ends, and then you will start to see some really strong growth. Hopefully that helps. And the question is, are the heliconias the same as the bird of paradise? No, they're not. These originate from the tropics. Bird of paradise comes from Africa, from South Africa specifically. So very different, but how beautiful. Aren't they just gorgeous little plants? Just need to have a little bit of protection. If you want to grow them in Victoria or somewhere like that, again, one of those Sproutwell greenhouses, grow them inside. It keeps them warm during the summer, protects them from cold breezes, cold soil, and most importantly, really frosts, which is the thing that really kills them. So hopefully that helps. Okay, we've done pretty well today. It's 9:58. A lot of questions. It's great that you've joined us and have been able to support us. I will answer one more question. Let's go to Kerry Reid. Okay, our pear tree was hammered with fruit fly last season. First time on a 10-year-old dwarf pear tree. We'll definitely include the barrier. Yeah, so you're in Bunbury. Fruit fly is certainly getting worse and worse as far as I'm concerned. There's not really too many effective treatments. The ones that they recommend, they do the job partly, but not fully, so you will lose some fruit. My suggestion is those fruit fly barrier bags are a good way to go. However, you can use a couple of sprays. Success, I've seen quite a good thing to control not so much the flies, but certainly the grubs before they get started. So maybe that's something you should think about as well. It's definitely a multi-approach if you want to have beautiful pears, and growing your own pears is fantastic. All right, let's have a quick look here. Oh, we get to the point of picking our winner. We've got 3 questions to pick from. Let me have a look here. Sue Hall, you asked about succulents and potting mix. Stephen Wiseman, you asked about how to track bees. And Lynn Winstanley, you asked about those sweet peas with your 9-year-old granddaughter. And Lynn, we're going to give it to you this week. It's a great thing to do, bring the kids into the garden and teach them how to grow things. So I hope that you can use that money to buy some sweet pea seeds, hopefully off the team at Garden Express. I know they have a great seed collection online as well. And I hope you enjoy it. And guys, don't be disheartened, because each week we're giving it away. We've got about 4 more weeks of this series to run. So it's getting to the point where you've got to get your questions in. Tell your friends about it. We'd certainly love to help you out. And then we'll take a break when the Garden Guru series finishes. As I said, it's about 3 to 4 weeks away. This week's code word for those who want to enter the Trevor competition, you have to go to their website, like it, share it with some friends, and pop into the little entry point the word gloves. Hopefully that makes sense. Gloves is your answer this week, and good luck. It's $250. It's going to keep your garden well fed for a long period of time. Can you see how I am like completely steamed? I'm sweaty, my hair's gone all curly, and I'm in the tropics. It is very, very different up here in Singapore. The good news is I will be back next week with the Garden Gurus Live. Of course, it'll actually be in Perth when I'm back, because I'll be back home. But thanks to all of you who've joined us and who've got a little bit of a taste of Singapore. If you ever get a chance to get up here, there are some amazing gardens. The public gardens here are just mind-blowing. We will be back with the Garden Gurus on Channel 9 tomorrow. Please tune in and join us, because your support's very important, and you have done that so well for us again this season. It's been great. And it's a really good show this week. There's some really cool little garden features that we've got. Nige is up to no good, and Bonnie makes an appearance as well. We received over 100 messages today. It's crazy. It's like insane. So it's just along, and it's great that that you ask your questions. If we've missed it, we'll put it on the list, and I'll do my best to answer it for you at the beginning of next week's show, which will be next Friday, and that is 9 a.m. Western Standard Time and 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I hope that we have helped you out today and that you've enjoyed the feed, and thanks for joining me. It's really appreciated. I'm Trevor Cochrane. See you again next week for the Garden Gurus Live, or we'll see you on Channel 9 tomorrow. See you then.